Welcome into the ABCFB podcast. My name, of course, is Andrew Garrison. That's Brooks White as well. We represent the A and the B in the ABCFB acronym. CFB is the rest. That's college football. That's what we're discussing on this episode and every episode. College football is almost here. It's coming up on Saturday, about 6 days, maybe 5 days throughout the rest of the summer until we get to week 0 of college football. Of course, very exciting. Today, we're going to talk about some Big Ten bold predictions as we look at that conference, and we're going to go through the AP poll a little bit and maybe some brief thoughts on week 0 if we have them a little bit later on. We'll talk about the AP poll in a similar way that we talked about the coaches poll a couple weeks ago. Plenty of time to sit and reflect on those rankings as we look ahead to the season. So, Brooks, we're here. Now, this is the first episode where we're both in Bloomington. You've made it, and now we're having a great time.
Yeah, I'm excited to be back here in Bloomington. That means college football right around the corner, Andrew. I mean, it feels like we've been saying the same things at the start of episodes for the entire past, 5 episodes or however many we've done. Just waiting for college football to be here. Now we have it. Week 0 is on the horizon. So super excited and can't wait to see some more great football. I mean, there's big-time teams, big conferences, Power 4 conferences playing this weekend. So there's good things on the way.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and get into our Big Ten bold predictions right here. What's fun about this segment, really what's fun about both segments, is we have a shared document where we write down our ideas on the segments, but sometimes we prep them in separate documents so that we don't know what each other is thinking, and that's exactly what happens right here. So I know what I think, you know what you think, and we don't know what each other thinks. I'll let you go ahead and start. I think we both have a couple here. I know I have 2 major bold predictions for the Big Ten, but what's your first one? What comes to mind right away?
I mean, I think this is bold in and of itself, but I am 100% confident that a Big Ten team, a top 3 team in the Big Ten, is going to win another national championship and go 4 straight years. Now, I've heard a lot of criticism from the outside, the SEC fans who say Georgia might have a more complete team, Gunnar Stockton coming back. They're always well coached. They have Kirby Smart. Texas, another team from the SEC that I think a lot of people are high on, and also Notre Dame, who obviously doesn't belong to a conference. So big-time players who can make a play that aren't a Big Ten team to win the national championship. But I think Oregon, Ohio State, and Indiana are in a league of their own. I've said it the entire offseason. I'll continue to say it as we move into the regular season. But a bold Big Ten prediction is it will be 4 straight years with a Big Ten team as the national champion. And I don't think I think it is very possible that it could be one of the 3 teams who has won in the past 3 years. Probably not Michigan, but I think you throw in Oregon as that 3rd team.
Sure, yeah, and it'd be wild to see 4 different teams in a row if Oregon was able to do it. My favorite bold prediction for this conference, I think this is kind of a fun one. It's not that bold realistically, but it's that the Big Ten goes undefeated against the SEC in the regular season. I believe there are 3 matchups. It's Ohio State, Texas, Michigan, Oklahoma, and Minnesota, Mississippi State. So I'm a Minnesota believer. I want to go Michigan over Oklahoma in part because of the site of that game. And I picked Texas over Ohio State last episode, but just for the fun of this particular, because that's really a toss-up, and for the fun of this bold prediction, I think Big Ten goes undefeated against the SEC. That'd also be very fun because that'd just be another feather in the cap of the Big Ten when it comes to that conference rivalry. This prediction mainly comes from Minnesota and me believing in Minnesota, at least much more than Mississippi State, but certainly more than many other teams of their caliber in the Big Ten. So I'll have the Big Ten go undefeated against the SEC. Do you agree with that one, Brooks? Because this is fun for you because you're obviously historically an Ohio State guy and historically not a Michigan guy. But do you think both of them get those wins?
So I would encourage all of the listeners to go back to our last episode. We did something very similar to this. But we talked about where we think that these Big Ten teams are going to finish in conference, wins and losses. I think it was a really good episode. I had Oklahoma beating Michigan, and I have Ohio State beating Texas. But I do think it would cause complete chaos, especially for the networks at ESPN and Fox, if there was dominance in the regular season like there potentially could be this year. Michigan Oklahoma is a matchup that I think we're going to talk a lot about on this show, especially leading up to it, because of what we saw last year. A healthy John Mateer, Oklahoma established that run game early, and then they just dominated Michigan at home in Norman last year. It'll be interesting to see what happens in Ann Arbor. I think Michigan is going to be a lot better of a football team completely across the board this year. Kyle Whittingham is miles and miles better than Sharon Moore was, and that coaching staff has gotten better in the offseason. So I am interested to see that game. I think it could happen, and I think more likely than not it will happen because the Big Ten has been more dominant than the SEC in the past 4 years. And to continue with my bold prediction, it's going to stay there. So they're both kind of related. What we're saying here, Andrew.
Absolutely. I think that would be a ton of fun. And especially the Minnesota Mississippi State one. People talk about Minnesota Mississippi State as a matchup that is perhaps more indicative of which conference is stronger because they're not the top teams, right? Michigan Oklahoma is kind of fun in that way too. But obviously, Michigan's a weird situation. You know how I feel about new head coaches, even if they're great head coaches at other places. My second bold prediction right here is UCLA is going to start 7-1. They're going to be ranked fairly highly at that point in the middle of the year, almost late in the year, but then finish 8-4. So I think the real bold prediction here is UCLA ranked, we'll say inside the top 20, maybe inside the top 15 at 7-1, and everyone's freaking out. And I should have looked when you might know off the top of your head, but when those college football playoff rankings come out, and if that happens, maybe we could see UCLA in the mix with those teams at 7-1 early on in the year. Looking at UCLA's schedule, that feels not outrageous to me early on. Obviously, they play Cal in week 1 really late at night, I think at 10:30 Eastern where we are, which would be obviously a really difficult one. But UCLA is one of those teams, kind of like Penn State, like you talked about last episode, that has a rather light Big Ten schedule, considering what some other Big Ten schedules look like. The start of the season's awesome for them. Besides Oregon, that's their one loss in those first few games. Coach Chesney's awesome. Nico, the quarterback, is probably going to be awesome. There's some good vibes around there, and I just feel like hitching to this wagon of UCLA going 7-1 to start the year, then probably falling off and falling very hard once they face the tougher stretch of their Big Ten schedule. But at least for the moment, I'll take UCLA at 7-1, and we'll say ranked inside the top 15 at some point in the year.
My last one is something that we already talked about on the last episode, so I'm not going to use it in its entirety. But I think Penn State makes this college football playoff. I think Penn State has the path. They have the easiest schedule in the Big Ten in my eyes because they avoid the top 3. They don't play Ohio State. They don't play Oregon. They don't play Indiana. And there's definitely a path with the solid starting quarterback in Rocco Becht. I could see it. My surprise Big Ten bold prediction, which they are ranked 14 in the AP poll right now, I believe, is USC makes a college football playoff. And I don't even know how bold that is, but I think in general right now, if you're thinking a team from the Big Ten, you're not thinking about USC as being a player. You're thinking of those top 3, the Ohio State, Oregon, Indiana. USC has all of the talent in the world. It's now about can they convert on that. And I think what we've seen with Lincoln Riley is these teams that he's had at USC, honestly, going back to Oklahoma, the teams that he has built, they are very offensive-minded, very air raid focused. They have great offenses. They fall off the deep end defensively. And when you play a West Coast style of defense, you get burnt by the typical classic Big Ten teams, which is why I am typically pretty cautious about saying anything good about USC just because they play in the Big Ten Conference now, and you know how much a run-heavy Wisconsin can do given the right circumstances, especially against a team like USC. But now they bring in a defensive coordinator who's a proven winner in Gary Patterson. If you don't remember, Gary Patterson was the former head coach at TCU. He is a winner, and I like what they have done in the offseason. They have the number 1 ranked high school recruiting class coming in to USC, and if they can continue to develop, I think USC could make a run at the college football playoff. They play the top three in the Big Ten. They play Ohio State, Oregon, Indiana. If they can steal one of those games, I think there's a very real possibility USC makes a college football playoff, and a very real possibility USC might advance past the first round.
That'd be a lot of fun. And USC is one of those teams we'll see in week 0 here in a couple of days. I think San Jose State in the mid-afternoon there. And TCU, the other team you accidentally mentioned, plays standalone at noon in Ireland. I forgot that game was in Ireland, TCU, North Carolina.
An accident. I guess it works out there.
Yeah, it does, totally. And that's that'll be a fun one. We'll have plenty to we'll definitely so we'll do a show on Sunday, I think, for sure, and we'll talk about week 0. I know I'll be very focused on TCU, North Carolina, and then obviously after that, there's multiple games on at the same time, so we'll kind of have our eyes in a lot of different places throughout the rest of the afternoon. So the LA teams potentially poised for a great year. I know Bill Simmons is somebody who is very involved with sports, but not so much college football, and I hear that he's had his interest peaked a little bit because obviously he's in LA and his LA teams or the LA teams rather are perking up a little bit. USC and UCLA namely. So UCLA could be that team. Kind of reminds me of that Mel Tucker Michigan State year. Maybe UCLA isn't as real of a contender as that team, but just kind of a random Big Ten team you see in the top 4 of the college football playoff rankings in the middle of the year. Or I guess in the second half of the year when we get to that point. It'll be interesting to see how UCLA does. That's a good transition to the next segment, the AP poll bold prediction segment, unless you have any more Big Ten bold predictions. But USC is a team that I listed in this group. We have 2 questions, 2 major thoughts here to kind of have some fun and look ahead throughout the rest of the year. The first involves which top 5 team is most likely to finish unranked. Obviously, we saw Clemson and Penn State ranked very highly last year and then not ranked at all at the end of the season. And then the second question involves which team outside of the top 12 is potentially the most likely to win it all, to win the national championship. Obviously, we saw Indiana ranked number 20 in the preseason and win a national championship. And that's the question I want to start with first, because that's where I have USC. So I'm looking for a team outside the top 25 outside the top 12 that's most likely to win a national championship like Indiana did. I picked USC because we know they have the talent at quarterback. We know they have the talent across the board, as you mentioned. Obviously, the experienced coach and a coach with playoff experience, maybe not winning playoff experience from back at Oklahoma, but playoff experience nonetheless. And maybe with that great young talent and an experienced coaching staff that can combine those 2 factors and obviously put lightning in a bottle. And I mean, it goes to what you said just now. It's why this segue works out well. But you said playoff maybe and maybe win a game in the playoff. And if I had to pick anyone outside of the top 12 to win a national championship, I went with USC. So it seems like we're similarly minded on that team. Maybe you pick USC for this question as well, but I'm really interested to see where you go with this because I was looking through these teams and it's really hard to find someone that I'd have the confidence to actually pick to do something like this.
Yeah, I looked at it and I was thinking about the other Big Ten teams because obviously I watch more Big Ten football and I think on that bubble, I think it's going to be a lot of Big Ten teams, right now in the rankings, you see the Michigans, the Washingtons, the Penn States, the USCs all kind of right there jumbled up at what might be the bubble for the college football playoff this year from the Big Ten Conference. And I think going off that, I wouldn't be surprised if, and I know I said Michigan would finish 8-4. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't, if they steal a game if they win against Indiana at home, if they, can upset Oregon or upset Ohio State, even beat Oklahoma. One of those games, 2 of those games go Michigan's way, and they could make the college football playoff. And I wouldn't discount Kyle Whittingham. He's a proven winner, what he's done at Utah, what he's brought in to Michigan. He has all the resources in the world to be a successful head coach in Ann Arbor, and I think he definitely can do that. However, we've already talked about this on the show, I only think that there's 7 teams who can win a national championship this year, and they're all ranked relatively towards the top in the top 7. I think it's the 3 Big Ten teams we've mentioned all off season, and it's Georgia, it's Texas, it's Miami, and it's Notre Dame. I think it's a very slim list, and I know Indiana wasn't on anybody's list last year to start the year. There's going to be teams that come out and they have hot starts, but if you're asking me right now, on August 25th, I only think there's 7 teams. I wouldn't even give any thought to any of these teams making a run from the 11th or 10th or whatever seed they would be in. So if I had to choose a team from the outside the top 12, Michigan or Penn State if they can make it in, or USC if they can make it in. Any of those Big Ten teams I have confidence in. But right now, there's only 7 teams I would trust to actually win a national championship.
Yeah, it's great that we're at the point with this show that our episodes and our topics kind of relate to each other in some way. The only reason I really inserted this question was because obviously it happened last year with Indiana number 20. Definitely an anomaly situation. USC is a good pick. The only other team that you didn't mention that I like is BYU here because returning quarterback and coach I really love. Obviously, Bear Bachmeier is still young at quarterback.
Bear Bachmeier.
Yeah, he's still very young, but they basically replaced Texas Tech on the schedule with Notre Dame, if I'm not mistaken. That's basically the trade. And they have Notre Dame at home. So maybe a 12-0 year for BYU. That's very possible. I've seen some people that I respect pick that matchup in favor of BYU. Or it's 11-1 and they go back to the Big 12 championship game, and then it's just can they get past Texas Tech game again? Or Texas Tech doesn't even make it, obviously. Who knows? But BYU in the playoff seems like almost likely. I would never pick. BYU is my Big 12 champion until it's mathematically impossible for me because I just don't want to pick Texas Tech and I don't feel super confident about anybody else. So BYU is the only one there. But then I had to imagine BYU breaking through past multiple Big Ten and SEC opponents in a row, and that felt difficult for me. But that would be almost I don't know if it'd be a cooler story than Indiana. That would just be such a cool story because BYU is one of those teams that you think about as a somewhat famous program, but like imagining BYU win a national championship, this feels so strange.
Yeah, definitely. I think what Kalani Sitake is building there, what he has built, and obviously choosing to stay there and not go to Penn State, I think over the offseason has helped BYU. It's helped their recruiting, and I think Bear Bachmeier is good. I think the Big 12 conference this year as a whole, I don't love it. I don't see a team that is absolutely standing out preseason as like a preseason favorite who I think could genuinely make a run towards the college football playoff. There's just not that team this year. Maybe we could have made an argument if Texas Tech and the Brendan Sorsby saga didn't happen, that they were the team in the preseason that you could look at. But then again, thinking back on it, this entire segment is about Indiana was ranked so low last year. They made this 16-0 run. It can happen from anywhere on the board. I just would be absolutely shocked if it was from a Big 12 school.
Absolutely. Yeah, BYU kind of is that team for me that I think could even, be a top 4 team. Not even because they're a top 4 team in the country, but just because of obviously that schedule. I'm overlooking the road trip to Utah, number 21 Utah, November 7th. That's obviously a big one.
The Holy War.
Yeah, that will be a ton of fun for sure. We'll definitely be talking about that episode on this show as long as both teams are relevant at that time. So that's another one. So maybe it's a 10-2 team. They don't make the playoff again. Who knows? I'm really interested. I guess they were 11-1 last year, but I'm really interested to see BYU. That's the only team that I almost picked. I just couldn't quite find the confidence to do it because USC has a better quarterback and better talent across the board. Those two teams, by the way, even in voting points in the AP poll at 14. So they're tied at 14, which I don't think I realized even until just now as I'm looking at it. But that'll be a ton of fun to see play out as well. USC this weekend. We're only a few days away. That's probably the team I'm most interested to watch, obviously because it's a Big Ten team. I don't think they're the only Big Ten team in Week 0. I'm blanking on what the other one is. Maybe they are the only Big Ten team playing this weekend. But definitely not the only team I'm interested in, but the team I'm interested in the most. The other question I have here, which top 5 team is most likely to finish unranked? I'll let you go first because I'm interested to see if we have the same one. I really only saw one possible option, even though that's what I probably would have said last year too.
I think it's a similar answer to what yours is, but I think it is the loser of the Week 2 matchup in Austin, Texas, Ohio State or Texas. I could see it going either way. And, I'm a Big Ten guy through and through. I think Ohio State is going to win. I've already said that. If they don't, Ohio State has an absolute gauntlet. It's already tough playing Texas on the road, but then you have to play Indiana on the road. You have to host Oregon. You have to play host to Michigan at the end of the year. These are all big-time games for Ohio State. You have to go out to USC. none of this is easy for Ryan Day in Ohio State, and they have, obviously what many voters think is the best team in the country. They're ranked number one. I know there was a lot of, congestion at the top where all these votes were going, but Ohio State is the number one team to start the year. And still, I'm thinking about the game that we saw last year. It wasn't high scoring. It was very close throughout the entire game. It was a defensive matchup, 14-7, Ohio State over Texas. And if that game goes the other way, if Texas never plays that last year, I think there's a very good case that Texas makes the college football playoff at the end of the year, being a two-loss SEC team, and then what happens the rest of the year? Does Arch Manning get criticized as much as he was after week one? The whole thing, I feel like, was this snowball effect with Texas last year, where losing in week one kind of destined their season off to start. They ended in the Citrus Bowl or Cheez-It Bowl or whatever it was against Michigan. They looked really good. Texas was playing some really good football down the stretch. They played a tough non-conference game, and I think that really set the tone, and it was a bad start to the season for Texas, and it kind of continued on. I think that can happen again for Texas. It 100% could happen, or it could happen to Ohio State, considering how tough their schedule is. And Texas has a tough schedule as well. So I think the loser of that game, if they can't rebound, they could find themselves out of the top 15. They could even find themselves out of the top 25 like Texas did last year.
Interesting. I went with Texas on this one, but Ohio State, kind of my case against Texas is very much the same as what I could have for my case against Ohio State, as you mentioned. I just believe in Ohio State, and I don't know that Tennessee, or excuse me, I'm looking at Tennessee on Texas' schedule right now. That's why I said that, but I don't know that Texas has as much of a reasonable route if things go wrong, as you mentioned, like that Ohio State loss. That game is losable. Every game is losable, but truly losable matchups. Ohio State's one. At number 20, Tennessee is another. At number 10, Oklahoma is a third. At home against number 9, Ole Miss is a fourth. At number 25, Missouri, we could maybe say is one. At number 11, LSU. And then at number 8, Texas A&M. So that's like 5 to 7. Half the schedule is super losable. If you look at every matchup individually, and you come away with 6-6, that's not outrageous for Texas, no matter how awesome they are. And maybe they are just completely untrustworthy. Maybe we're just inflating their chances again, because last year they were obviously up there towards the very top and then ended up not in the playoff, as you mentioned. Various factors there. They do play Ohio State again, obviously. The SEC is still very difficult. So all the reasons why Texas, all the excuses why Texas missed the playoff last year, they might face again with Ohio State and this SEC schedule. Obviously, the Ohio State matchup is in Austin, which is better. But nonetheless, Texas is my pick there. You mentioned some of the great points on that. I didn't end up even really considering Ohio State. Maybe it's just because they were all the way up at number one, and I just feel confident that they'll win the games they need to win, mainly because I'm confident that they'll beat Michigan. I think that's it for me. But yeah, to finish unranked was difficult for me to find my way into deciding with Ohio State. But with Texas, just with how many losable games there are, they're the only team I could see dropping completely off the board. Georgia obviously has plenty of losable games too. I just believe in them. Oregon, sure, and Notre Dame doesn't have enough losable games to not be unranked. I looked it up. I don't remember though. I prepped this segment too long ago, but Notre Dame hasn't finished unranked in a decent amount of time. It's definitely been a while.
And it won't happen this year. Their schedule, their team, they're too good of a team in South Bend, and also they only play one tough game. They host Miami this year. So I that's my thing with Notre Dame. I don't think that they're going to finish out. I looked at all the top 5 teams that we had the opportunity to choose from here, and I really only think it could happen if one of these teams starts on a bad foot. Like it doesn't. I don't think it's going to happen for either Ohio State or Texas that they drop out of the top 25. It happened for Texas last year. I don't think Texas was as good as they are this year. Texas has some weapons defensively. Colin Simmons, Raheem Biles, the transfer from Pitt, their linebacker. They're stacked across the board. Wide receiver, they bring in Cam Coleman from Auburn. They have Arch Manning in his second year. Great run game. Texas is going to be all right. And I don't think I see them dropping off. I really only see, again, like I said, 7 teams who can contend at the top, and Texas is one of those 7 teams. We're going to find out a lot in week 2. And I'm glad it's going to be under the lights because last year, Big Noon Kickoff was, I think it really robbed what could have been an absolutely electric Ohio Stadium atmosphere against Texas. Obviously, Ohio State still won, though. So we'll have to see what nighttime and, DKR is like for Ohio State and what it's like for Texas in 2026. But I'm excited that that's only, 3 weeks away now?
Something like that, yeah. It seems closer than...
I think it's 3 weeks. If this is week 0, then week 1, then, 3 weeks away. We'll have to see.
Almost there. And we'll be watching that game. IU plays at 4 against Howard, so we won't... maybe we'll be writing and stuff, but we won't necessarily be completely unavailable for that matchup, which will be a ton of fun. We were completely unavailable for that matchup last year. It was IU Old Dominion at noon at the same time as Ohio State, Texas, which I just remembered about. So I didn't even watch that game. I obviously watched it after the fact, but I didn't watch it live. I was very confused by the score throughout it. Speaking of college football games, we didn't put this in the rundown, but I kind of want to just bring this up randomly. There's 8 week 0 matchups in FBS. Which one's your favorite? And which one are you most excited to see? Maybe beside, you can use North Carolina TCU if you want, but obviously that one's exciting because it's the very first one.
Well, yeah, you always get excited for week 0. It's like an appetizer almost before the full week 1 slate because, it starts on Thursday for week 1. I'm a Big Ten guy through and through, and I've spent the entire offseason having a ton of questions about USC. We've talked a lot about them in this episode. But at 3 p.m. on Saturday, USC San Jose State, I'm super excited to see what that matchup is like. And also, hopefully I'm not taking this one from you as well, but NC State, Virginia, I'm excited. That game is no longer in Brazil. It's in Raleigh. But I am interested to see just a regular ACC matchup because conference games are the best. I absolutely love conference games. I love the Big Ten slate. I love the SEC slate. I'll watch the ACC. I'll watch the Big 12 slate. Sometimes the non-conference, to me, can be very boring. It can feel like some of these games, some of these teams who aren't contenders, so difficult to watch sometimes when it's a not close game in the non-con. When you get these early season conference games, sometimes those are the best. You get to see some action right away, and the stakes actually end up mattering at the end of the year more than some of these non-conference games. So excited to see USC San Jose State for sure.
I'm glad that I went niche here because you picked 2 that I didn't, but those are obviously some great ones there earlier in the day. Of course, North Carolina TCU is a story on its own. TCU may be a player in the Big 12. North Carolina maybe in disaster territory, and to be... Say that again, sorry?
Bill Belichick. I don't know.
Yeah.
He could be gone by the end of the year.
And I keep forgetting he's there. I just keep imagining everything else going on with North Carolina. If they get destroyed again, I still remember watching that. It was one of my first nights in the dorm room. Was watching it on my laptop there in week 0. Just outrageous last year. And if that could happen again, it totally could.
The perfect first drive for the Tar Heels. Really perfect first drive. It went all downhill from there.
Yeah, actually, great point. I forgot about that. I forgot about the first drive.
Yeah.
So that could happen again in front of everybody in Ireland. TCU favored by 7.5. Say that again, sorry?
By Josh Hoover. They got
matter of fact
smoked by Josh Hoover, Indiana Hoosiers quarterback.
I remember sitting there thinking I should probably be watching this game, for research purposes, and then I was like, I'll just watch it for fun because it's North Carolina and TCU, 2 of the most irrelevant to Indiana programs of the country, and look at us now. We've been talking about this TCU quarterback all summer. The one I really want, though, and I'm really excited about, is also a standalone, and it's Memphis UNLV. Because
the group of 5 matchup.
Yeah, this is the best one of them all. Obviously, we have Eastern Michigan and Sacramento State. It's on ESPN Plus. I'll probably favor Florida State and Stanford over that one. They play different games, but they both play at that time. Memphis UNLV is the game for me. I'm trying to pull it up right now because I've been using. I've been looking at the FPI a decent amount just because it's the only way, the best way, as far as I know, to look at every team all at once. UNLV is pretty high, and Memphis is too. And so both of them are within the top 70, the top 60, something along those lines. Looks like UNLV is at 58 in the FPI. And as I scroll down and completely lose my track, there it is, 74. So 58 for UNLV, 74 for Memphis, two top 75 teams. I knew it was something, a good buzzword like that. Standalone, 10 o'clock. I like Memphis a lot. There's Gary Parrish is someone who covers college basketball, and I've listened to the Eye on College Basketball podcast forever, and then I just like Gary Parrish a lot, and he does radio in Memphis. I listen to way too much Memphis stuff just because I like Gary Parrish, and so I know way too much about Memphis football, way too much about the Grizzlies, and so Memphis football returning this season to face UNLV, I think on the road, definitely not at home, at 10 o'clock in week 0. That's where I'm going to be that night. And I'm very excited about that. So Memphis UNLV is a fun one, and maybe one of those teams is in the college football playoff by the end of the year. It's not outrageous considering where they are in the FPI. Obviously, we've named half of the games in that slate. North Dakota State plays, Florida State plays, Eastern Michigan, Sacramento State for those interested, and we get Stanford, Hawaii. We're robbed of the Hawaii home game, very, very late night, but we still have a full day, about noon to 1 a.m., I'd imagine.
And just a little quick fact for the viewers out there, but North Dakota State playing in their first ever FBS game this Saturday. Exciting times for the Bison. They've been so dominant in the FCS ranks for what feels like the longest time. So now moving on up. Exciting in Fargo.
Absolutely. What if that's the college football playoff team? What if there's a North Dakota State appearance? We'll see. CBS Sports Network, 5:30 p.m. for that matchup against Jacksonville State. We'll have a ton of fun. Maybe on Sunday we can look ahead to some of those, obviously week 1 in general, but also, Thursday night's going to be great. We got the Big Ten Network doubleheader, Rutgers against, I think it's UMass, and then Illinois against someone. I've lost it, but Illinois against someone that they'll beat. But still, Big Ten Network doubleheader for those teams. We got some good games on Thursday and Friday next week, which we can talk about when we get to that point. And the next episode, we'll actually have games to discuss, and that'll be a great time. And we won't have the AGPB rankings algorithm next week, but we'll do it after week 1, once all the teams play. And so you can look forward to our outrageously early playoff rankings, or outrageously early resume rankings, perhaps, a little bit later on next week after week 1. Brooks, you have anything else to add right here before we get out of here? A little bit of a quicker episode today because I got to go to class.
Yeah, stay tuned for more content. Finally back in Bloomington. Keep up with all of our work for the Hoosier Network. It's going to ramp up here in the next couple of weeks, and it'll stay on a pretty consistent basis throughout the entire season. So excited for that. And also excited for week 0. We just talked all about it. But college football is finally back, folks. Could not be more excited. We will have you covered all season long.
Absolutely. You can check in the description on Spotify or YouTube right here, see where we can find our stuff. But thehoosiernetwork.com is definitely a great place to start, especially for those of you that watch this podcast because we're, of course, IU football, IU men's basketball, etc. reporters. That's all we have. So that's episode number 5 or 6, whatever it is, of the ABCFB podcast. And now we'll get ready for week 0. We'll be watching. Follow us on Twitter. We might have thoughts. We might have reactions. And we'll definitely have much to talk about on Sunday when we get to that point from week 0. Thank you so much for watching and or listening to this episode of the ABCFB podcast. We'll talk to you again next time.